Okay. Welcome to the Cryptocurrency Report. I'm your host, Dawid Yaakov Maccabeus, aka David James Green. Today is going to be a very interesting report. This one will be on bitmainstreet.com or Bitmain Street Market. Go on there, go to the newsletter, sign up for the newsletter, you can get this full transcript. Okay? Now, this report is entitled The Africa We Want and the AfCFTA Protocol on digital trade. But first, let's talk about Charlie Kirk. Now, what's interesting is I had this report ready on September 10th, and I kept getting interrupted, and it was the incident that happened with Charlie Kirk, and I was like, man, so many distractions. Now, this is extremely important, okay? Extremely important. So I hope this one can go out far and wide. I ask that you like and subscribe. Once you like and subscribe, it allows me to get the confidence to keep doing more of these reports. My main goal is to find ways for entrepreneurs to make money. My main purpose of doing this broadcast is to promote Bitmain Street, and this is one of those things that happened today, or that happened the other day with this African protocol that really got me excited. But anyway, without further ado, let's get to it. The Africa We Want and the AfCFTA Protocol on digital trade. But first, let's talk about Charlie Kirk. Now, I wish I could be more expressive without having to write it down, but this is one of those conversations when writing is necessary. The other day, I was working on promoting my new book when I noticed a alert came across my TikTok feed with the title, 1.4 billion Africans just went offline from TikTok.
1.4 billion Africans have just unsubscribed, disconnected from the Western internet. What y'all got to say about that? Now, these people launched their own internet. Now, hold on, wait a minute, y'all. We thought China was advanced. Hold up. Africa? So, meaning they no longer have to be penny pinching or being controlled by the Western side, by the West. So, this means that these people controlling their own tech, like the AI tech, you know how much money that is that they losing in the West? You know how many people that is? And they saying by...
So I checked out the video and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, usually a headline like this makes you think, it makes me think. I say like, oh, damn, what now? Because whenever you see Google in Africa in one sentence, the first thing that comes to your mind, or my mind, is, oh, hell, here we go again. Okay? But this time, the news was very, very, very good. It was a very pleasant surprise. Google didn't shut off Africa. Africa shut Google off. And at that moment, I knew the game had changed. Okay? Now we're going to get really deep into this. All right? So save this video. Save this video. Come back to it. We just getting started. Okay? We just getting started. And right when I was about to write a nice reaction piece on my social media, another flood of distractions interrupted me. Now, to be clear, this message is going to take a deep dive into the amazing news about Africa. But before I do, I have to acknowledge the mass media mind distraction. This is a mass media mind distraction. And it's funny how these mass media mind distractions come in times in which one story dies that could be life-changing or event-changing, and another one picks up. And as we get into this message today, you'll see what I'm talking about, okay? Is there mass media mind distractions, okay? MMDs, like, weapons of mass destruction. Instead of weapons of mass destruction, it's mind destruction, because you get distracted, okay? Now, just one day before 9/11, think about that. That's when the incident happened with Charlie Kirk. And then these mass media mind distractions, MMDs, show up to suck all the attention out the ether. Whenever this happens, it's times like these when people should pay attention. Got to pay close attention. Okay? Now, let me set this up so that we can, let me see where we at here. There we go. Look at me all little. Move over a little bit. All right, let's do this. Let me see. Sorry about that. I'm adjusted now. All right. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Everybody hear me? All right. Hello. How are you? Okay, let's see. All right. Before I start, I'm going to put this here. Boom. Oh my goodness. Like I said, right when the good news happened and things, I was going to write this awesome report. I'm still going to write the report. This is going to be 2 parts, okay? It's going to be 2 parts. But I first got to get into this one real quick. Okay, here we go. All right, now, let me put my notes up here. Now, I want you to think about the word attention. The most valuable asset you have left is your mind. And what you think about, okay, you give it to everyone without little recharge. In order to recharge, you have to meditate and pause from the news and social media. Because the news not only has to get your attention, but keep your attention. All right, now think about that word attention. The most valuable asset you have left is your mind and what you think about. And you give it to everyone without little recharge. Okay? In order to recharge, you have to meditate and pause from the news and social media, because the news not only has to get your attention, but keep your attention, so that they can download their program. The program of buy, sell, and obey. Before social media, the mainstream traditional media had little competition. Now with the other media or mass media in the form of what I call social media distractions, SMDs, via corporations like TikTok, Twitter X, YouTube, Instagram, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney, Apple, Rumble, and Truth Social, just to name a few. It has become more difficult for the CNN, the Fox News types, and all those in between, old school, not so mainstream media, has to compete with all of this just for a moment of your attention. Because the prize is not about profit, it's about control of the most powerful force on earth, your mind. Therefore, he who controls the narrative can upload another program. Which is why at this moment in time, the so-called mainstream media is desperate to gain back control. Case in point, as I write this, the conservative of conservatives, Charlie Kirk, departed terra firma. Now, in saying this, I have to respectfully say that regardless on how you felt about this man and I felt about this man, I advise that you take this time to observe, use it as a teachable moment, and hold judgment until you see the whole story. If you can do this simple act, it will clear your mind. Now, as a man of faith, I try not to judge because every individual has his or her own path. This man left behind his children and his wife, and I do not wish that on anyone, And from my understanding, he says he was a man of faith as well. Therefore, I ask Yahshua to be with his family at this moment in time. Now, the black community is often criticized from within for expression of faith towards others. We're criticized for that. We do that a lot. Which is why we are not all the same. But one thing we could never lose is our humanity. Because without it, you lose the game. There are people who loved and cared about this man. And being cold and unaware is not Black American culture. Let me repeat that. Being cold and unaware is not Black American culture. So I asked Ayah to be with his family during this difficult time. Now, on the flip side, we have to take a deep dive into this incident. Because if the media can control your reaction, then it will become more than an attack on Charlie Kirk. It will manifest into a physical attack on freedom of speech, just like 24 years ago, September 11th, 2001. Now, since the algorithm of this particular message will seek out people of the faith, I feel comfortable mentioning the book of Revelations. In this book, we read about a time where it says, "Come out from amongst her," which was referring to the fall of Babylon. I say this because the recent incidents are designed to further divide and conjure what's left of what used to be America. First of all, you have to know that this is high-level demonic activity, and its purpose is to further divide Christianity at its core. Now, in a future discussion, I will take a deep dive into the importance of the Judaic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and how they are a monotheistic. Okay? Now, they're all monotheistic, and this too has been divided. You know, we should all be getting along at this time. But this is high-level demonic activity. Okay? Now, to be clear, America is a very complicated country. And the America I grew up in during the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s changed forever, especially after September 11th, 2001. Likewise, the America my parents grew up in, it changed after 1960s civil rights movement. And like the most recent change during the 2020 worldwide pandemic, America and the whole world changed. During the worldwide lockdown of 2020, we witnessed the last essence of what used to be America leaving the scene. Meanwhile, those who identify as Black people in America are having a different experience because we see a different kind of change. We went from Good Times to The Cosby Show, from Reginald Lewis to Earn Your Leisure. Now, to be clear, this is not a message of doom and gloom, because I am a messenger of hope, a messenger of hope. This particular message is for your attention because Babylon is falling. Now, just last week, my brother Ralph called me and asked me about Charlie Kirk, which is quite interesting. Now think about this. We never talk about Charlie Kirk. We never talked about him in the past, never, the man's name never came up, nothing. But a week before he died, my brother Ralph, I grew up with this man. This is my best friend on earth, okay? Besides my sister, of course. Calls me up, okay, and we start talking about Charlie Kirk. Now, we don't even agree on his rhetoric, and it's rare because Ralph and I, we agree on a lot of things, but on this particular topic, we don't agree on. Okay, I don't agree on his rhetoric. You know. Now he experiences one view, and I experience another, which brings me to a point. Think about how information can permeate internet spaces. Think about how information grabs your attention at will. I say this because I had a deeper thought. What if the information we see today manipulates the outcomes of tomorrow? Of course it does. Then the question is this: why was Charlie Kirk trending a week before he expired? Trending in places outside of the norm. Now, of course, you must keep in mind, we live in the age of artificial intelligence. How hard would it be for them to use this technology to manipulate your mind and for what you see? Plus, he was going on tour, so that could be an explanation as well. But he went on tour before. We never talk about this man. Seems like he was extra permeating Okay? Now, when my brother asked me what I thought about Charlie Kirk, I said to my brother, his opinions concerning abortion, I appreciate it because we have lost over 20 million babies from the black community alone, which is 1/3 of our potential population. Okay? Just 20, we got just 20 we have 20 depopulated, 20 million people. We depopulated 20 million people from our population. Instead of 40 million, we have 60 million. Think about that. So I appreciate that attention. However, I cannot co-sign on the numerous negative, hurtful, and manipulative things he said about my people, black people. How can you care about abortion on one hand, but on the other hand, have contempt for the people being aborted? Then I went deeper. I also see how the alt-right media keeps attaching us to the demonic activities of the Democratic Party. When I scroll through the news and all I see is black faces on news feeds and constant negative black people in media views. For example, the algorithm pushing the story when we had that mentally ill black dreadlock dude involved who killed a young white woman on a train. Remember, right before Charlie Kirk, we had that incident. Seem like we forget about things. Things are being set up, and then you have one cycle come and another thing is being set up to take its place. Fighting for your attention. Fighting for your attention. Now, this is highly suspect. Because out of all the people in North Carolina, when that incident happened about the dreadlock dude, we had a young white woman from Ukraine, named, what was her name? Irina Daruska. I can't even say the name. Very foreign, very Ukrainian. And at the moment, the headlines were saying, a refugee who had fled her country because of the Russian invasion is fatally stabbed and murdered by a black man live on Fox News. And like clockwork, all the alt-right news, all those feeds, they just ate it up. InfoWars, No Report, Fox News, all of them. Push the story out there. And now, within days, Charlie Kirk is exterminated live on stage. And the media is showing images of people celebrating and talking reckless, while the most heavily armed society on earth is feeling threatened by what they perceive as a demonic society. Oh yeah, that's what they look. They look at you and they think you demons. They think you are the straight demons from hell. That's what they're seeing and that's what they're thinking. Problem, reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. Now, in times like these, the key is not to react. Speak less. Don't say too much until you have more information. This is a time when you observe and meditate on the information. Because there is no way these recent incidences are coincidental. Okay? There is no way these recent incidences are coincidental. Especially within 24 hours before the anniversary of September 11th, 2001. Nobody talked about September 11th, 2001. We got Donald Trump going into the White House. One of the things would have been that talking point. Boom, gone. Off the news. Now we're hyper-focused on this incident. Got all your attention. What programs are they putting in your mind during this time? So, now we have to ask the question. What is the program? Now, if this question seems strange, you haven't been following me long. I have been speaking about this present day dragon for many years now. And all he does is change form from time to time. Those of you who are atheists or who have a lack of faith are clueless to what time it is. For those who do see, or for those who haven't noticed, Babylon has fallen. We are living Revelations 18 in real time. Okay? It's in real time. Now let me be clear. Babylon is not just one country. It is a system of economic control. Babylon is an economic system that has been rising and falling a few times in the past, and we are entering its final fall. It rises and falls and rises and falls and rises and falls. Now, before I get into the present, let's explore the past. Okay? We had the fall of Rome, which was the first global power that seduced nations and fell in 476 AD. This gave birth to the Holy Roman Empire and created the church fathers called the popes. This gave rise to the medieval era and the papal colonial system, where kings and merchants partnered for wealth for over 400 years during the slave trade, okay? Which was from the 15th till the 18th century. During the time, the Catholic Church, which is often identified as Babylon by the Protestants, okay? In Protestant interpretations, they expanded its wealth and influence throughout the sale of indulgences, remember that? And close alliances with European monarchs, creating a powerful union of religious and political authority. That's when we went into feudalism. Okay, and we fought, the nations fought from feudalism, 1776, created the United States of America, but at that time, black people were being enslaved. It is Babylon for us. Babylon got to fall for us. You see the world through different eyes. You see the world through different programs. Now, this led to Dum Diversis of June 18th, 1452, building the foundation for imperial power such as Spain, Portugal, and later Britain to launch vast colonial enterprises that reshaped the globe, subjugating nations and exploiting entire populations for gold, silver, sugar, spices, and other luxuries that became the prize. They call it delicacies. Remember that in the book? Delicacies of empire. In this system, the great merchants of the earth emerged in the form of the Dutch East Indian Company, the Netherlands, and the British East Indian Company. These became corporations that amassed unprecedented riches and power, fueled largely by the machinery of exploitation, forced labor, and slavery. Now, meditate on this for a moment, okay, as I read Revelations 13. Because I have some of y'all probably thinking, no, this can't be Babylon. America can't be Babylon. No way. Yeah, not to you. But to the majority of the earth, definitely. Definitely. Now I'm going to read Revelations to all my Christian brothers and sisters out there. You got to be honest. You got to be honest. It is no time to be slipping right now. Slipping and sleeping. Sleeping and slipping. Revelations 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. Think about that lion. Well, I take a sip of water. And the dragon gave him his authority, his power, and his seat, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy, and power given unto him to continue 42 months. Now, I really get into this with HebrewsWakeUp.com, so I'm not going to go that deep into that right now. I explain and I show you because the different times that this Babylon has fallen. When you go through history, understanding who the correct people are, what time frame is talking about, and not having the ego on thinking that you are holier than thou, understanding that maybe you are Babylon, then if your mind can expand past that, then you'll be able to translate this a little bit better. Now, for those of you who are tapped in, I want you to comprehend the above information. First, observe the message where it says, And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and seat and great authority. Now, y'all understand we had like the industrial age, and then the manipulations of World War I, and then the manipulation of World War II, and then how all that was planned out, and then the founding of Israel, how that was convenient in its time frame, and then you have to think about what came out of that later. We have the secret societies like the Bilderbergers and the Council of Foreign Relations. Not really secret, but the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, all these things that came out of that were basically between Europe and the United States. Okay? The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Now, when you think about the leopard, it says the leopard is a joint power agreement, right? Think back during the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement. What happened out of that? We have colonial powers coming together again to rule the world. The deadly wound was healed. The feet of the bear at this time was the Soviet Union. The mouth of the lion is or was Great Britain. They had all the power. The feet of the bear. The bear. Soviet Union. What's happening right now in Ukraine? Soviet Union broke up, became Russia. Right? Now it's Russia again. No longer Soviet Union. Now you have a bear. Okay, you had that bear. You got Ukraine, which is causing a lot of problems in this world at this moment in time. Okay? The leopard is the United States of America partnered with Europe. This is the power of NATO, the United States military. Who can fight against the United States military and NATO? Who can do it? Okay. Now, I mention this because it will segue into the title that I spoke about, the Africa we want and the AfCFTA Protocol of digital trade. Now, since the Bretton Woods Conference Agreement of 1944, the world has been living under the economic rules of post-war. The creation of the IMF, which allowed other countries' currencies to be pegged to the United States dollar. The creation of the World Bank that funded the reconstruction of Europe. The same World Bank that allows predatory loans in exchange for the resources of the so-called third world countries. The establishment of the fixed exchange rate, which had the U.S. dollar to gold, and at the time gold was $37 an ounce. And then the United States became the world reserve currency. Basically, Bretton Woods laid the foundation for the modern global financial governments we see today. Well, at least until 1971, when global governance was removed after Richard Nixon removed it on August 16th, 1971. But that's another story, or a continuance of why we are in the situation we are. What do you think about this power? He who controls the dollar controls the world. He who controls the purse controls the world. Now, what's interesting is out of the 44 countries, now think of that number, 44. 44 countries, 1944. 1944 is the 72-year time frame. If y'all don't understand what I'm talking about, study that with HebrewsWakeUp.com. 72 years, there's always a cycle. And if the cycle is matching, then those who are matching the cycles are those of the dragon. So obvious when you can see. What's interesting is out of the 44 countries, five of them made their own agreement. And those five were Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They did this in 2001, the same year of the September 11th attacks. This became the BRICS. Remember Trump's talking about the BRICS? The BRICS. That's it. 2001, the BRICS is created in November. This is September, October, November. 2 months later, we have the BRICS created. That's interesting. Which is now creating a new global economic order. So here we are, 2025. We hear that the BRICS are now creating a new economic order. Now, we are only 81 years I shouldn't say only. We are 81 years into the Bretton Woods Agreement. And within 81 years, the euro is 12.7 trillion euros in debt. Some accounts, it's like 32 trillion. Now, please listen to this, what I'm saying now, because it's very important. The euro is 12.7 trillion euros in debt. The United States is $37 trillion in debt. Also keep in mind, the African nations have to borrow in foreign currencies. So they have to borrow in the USD, or they have to borrow in the euro. So that the state debt, since they have to borrow dollars, they can't use their own currency because the West manipulates them until they are worthless, which keeps them in debt by making their local currency weaker. Okay? Which is how the World Bank and the Westernized nations control countries like Africa and South America. It's all a game. Now, I mention this to place your mind, which nation matched the system of present day Babylon? Okay, so now it's undeniable who Babylon is. I mean, to many of y'all, it's obvious, you know. I'm just telling y'all that, you know, that we better wake up. We better get it together. We better keep our attention on what is important, especially at this time. Now, like I said, I mentioned this to place it in your mind. Which nations match the system of Babylon? Present day Babylon. As it reads, Revelations 18:1. And after these things I said, I saw another angel come down from heaven, saying, great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Let me read that right. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mighty with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Now take a moment to observe the temperature of social media and mainstream media and find out if you find a match to this particular time. Think about it. Everybody's at each other's throat. People are saying evil things. I mean, saying horrible things to each other. This is hate. People, this is just hate. We are in a time of hate. Hate speech. You got people just being gunned down, killed. This is horrible. And it reads, for all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornications, and the kings of the earth have committed fornications with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Remember that word, delicacies? All the delicacies of the third world nations that Babylon has stolen and made and broken and impoverished. And now they are in debt by trillions that they cannot pay. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye may not be partakers of her sin, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Ayah hath remembered her iniquities. Now, since September 11, 2001, how many people lost their lives due to the manipulation of the dragon? Remember that? Weapons of mass destruction are here. then you killed millions of people in Iraq. I mean, it's horrible. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Reward her even as she reward you, and double unto her double according to her works in the cup which she hath filled, to her double. How much hath glorified her, and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day. It's coming, y'all. Death and mourning and famine. That means the collapse of the market, collapse of the dollar, collapse of the euro, collapse. It's written in the world. It's just a matter of time. And she shall utterly be burned with fire, for strong is Yahuwah Ayah, who judgeth her. Now this is Revelations 18:9. Think of those two numbers, 18:9. Okay. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth her merchandise or their merchandise anymore. That sounds like a stock market crash to me. That sounds like 2008 all over again. Now, the other day on TikTok, I spoke to you about a book called, this is when I was doing my my little TikToks on Saturday and Sunday for HebrewsWakeUp.com. I spoke about a book, and that book is called The Circle of Intrigue. I'll show that on the screen. And to this day, they're still afraid of this book. Now, if you ever get the chance to read this book, then you will see that the information in this book is core to the Christian identity movement. The Christian identity movement. Now, I would like those who are still unconscious to understand. The incident that happened with Charlie Kirk this week marks a major milestone because it marks the end of an era. It marks the end of an era. The dragon is reorganizing power. Revelations 18:3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornications, and the kings of the earth have committed fornications with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. We're here. If you ever remember you went to the mall and you see those like huge kiosk maps, right? Those kiosks. You go to the mall and you see them huge kiosk maps and it says, "You are here." That's where you at. Okay, you here. You cannot sustain an empire with 37 trillion in debt. No matter how hard Donald Trump works, he could work like hell to save this economy. But when you have the Supreme Court fighting against him and the Federal Reserve fighting against him, this makes the collapse inevitable. Regardless of how you feel about Trump, He is the only thing standing between a total collapse of the United States of America. He's the only thing. The Department of Government Efficiency could only save $205 billion out of the targeted $1 trillion they wanted to save. Remember Doge? Remember Elon Musk? Remember he said, I'm gonna save a trillion dollars? Him and who's that other boy he was working with? Can't think of his name right now. They had that argument, split up. Trump went along, and he was only to save $205 billion. He had the best, the brightest minds. We couldn't save that money though. Only $205 billion out of $1 trillion. And we $37 trillion in debt. We couldn't even save $1 trillion. The spending is out of control and the system is becoming unsustainable. Okay? It's unsustainable. Now let's read Revelations 18:3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornications, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Now take your mind back to the 2008 financial crisis. At the time, I was living and working in Europe at Saxo Bank in Denmark. And I remember clearly when all the Forex traders were freaking out. Back then I was building a, I was working with the web stuff, web applications. And I was fortunate enough to have a job in 2008 at that time in Copenhagen. And I remember what happened, clear as day. I was looking at the fax machines. I was like, whoa. The Forex traders were freaking out. This is a time when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac became insolvent. During this time, the theft of Wall Street was in full swing. Trillions of dollars in wealth was stolen in days. This sparked the 2011 movement, Occupy Wall Street, which is why Bitcoin exists. All of this, that's the history of Bitcoin. Bitcoin exists because of this. Now let's fast forward to 2025. Here we are again. We are in 2008 again, 2025. But this time, there's no more money for a bailout. All the bailout money was spent during the 2020 global COVID-19 crisis. Which reminds me, just like in 2020, we had the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2009, we had the swine flu pandemic. Many of you remember the effects of that so-called cure on the nervous system. Just like the swine flu pandemic of 76, the H1N1 keeps on giving. Now, I hope by now you can see the pattern. And you can also see that you must keep reminding yourself freedom of speech is not free. And sometimes you have to pay with your life. And before I get too far in the weeds, let me speak about the real reason I was inspired to do this broadcast. Okay, because there's a reason why I did it, but then I got interrupted. The Africa we want and the African Fair Trade protocols on digital trade. Okay. Like I said the other day, I was on the internet working on promoting my book when my attention was pulled towards my TikTok feed. I got the alert that said, 1.4 billion Africans just went offline from Google. Okay? This was great news. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into that, which I really wanted to get into on the next broadcast. But I just wanted to mention Charlie Kirk, since it did interrupt me. I said, well, let's really talk about what's going on, because come out from amongst my people. We have a very, very, very small window to do something about this. But the opportunity is there for us. And the next message is going to be a complete message of hope. We're going to go through the history again, but it will be a lot better for what I want to speak about later. Okay? Now, let me see. I hope everybody is going to be fine. Let me see if I can switch some of this up a little bit. No, not that. There we go. Boom! Hello, everyone. Hello. Let's put this back here. Yeah. That's what we're gonna talk about next. The next message I want to give y'all is a message of hope. Tune in for the digital trade in Africa. We're gonna get back into what cryptospiracy news is about. Also, I have my book out, the book on Web 3.0 wealth. Now there's a very depressing part of the future, but there's a very hopeful part of the future. And those of you who were victimized by, the past have a way out. Y'all's giving you a way out. You just have to see it, okay? All right, much love and respect. I will talk to you later. Hopefully this message reaches you and gives you the information you need. Much love. Peace.